Hello, this week is Pashas Lech Lecha. So we're going to learn a maimer in the Torah Eira in Pashas Lech Lecha. The maimer we're going to do, as you can see on your PDF, is V'leikari oid shimcha Avram. This is the maimer where the Alter Rebbe explains on a mystical level, on a Hasidic level, the significance of Avram Avinu's name being changed. He started out with one name, Avram, then he had his name changed to Avraham. You have to explain both, why his name was initially Avram and why it was later changed to Avraham. But first the story. The Rebbe, our Rebbe, arrived in New York in 1941 in, let's say, May. His father-in-law, the Frierdiker Rebbe, was already here. The Frierdiker Rebbe was quite limited physically at that point in his life. And naturally, the Rebbe stood to a great degree in the forefront of the activities of Lubavitch at that time. He oversaw all the outreach work and the various other organizations that the Frierdiker Rebbe ran. But the Rebbe was, as we all know, incredibly dedicated and loyal to his father-in-law, the Frierdiker Rebbe. And the Rebbe once had revealed an interesting little detail. And that was that frequently, while there were events happening in the shul that used to be called in those days downstairs, the previous Rebbe would turn on an intercom and listen in. In other words, the Rebbe, our Rebbe, was making a Siyum Masechta or otherwise Fabrenging or making some kind of a talk on whatever topic it was, and his father-in-law, the previous Rebbe, would listen in. So the Rebbe said he always felt strange about that because it's a well-known thing that when you stand in the presence of a Rebbe, you keep quiet and you show respect and deference. Here, he was leading an event. That was his role, that was his responsibility, with the full awareness that his father-in-law is listening in. Had his father-in-law, the Rebbe, been in the room, the Rebbe would have been silent. But to him, it was essentially the same thing. The Frierdiker Rebbe is listening to him, and yet he's in a leadership role. And the Rebbe explained, in effect, that he struggled with this. Here I am, talking, and the Rebbe, who is my teacher, is listening in. And the answer that he gave was, Das ist was der Rebbe will. This is the Rebbe's want. The Rebbe wants that we should fabreng. The Rebbe wants that we should have these conversations. The Rebbe wants for us to take initiative. And that's part of the reason he's not in the room. He's upstairs to give us space. And therefore, although it's quite uncomfortable, because all of us know that the Rebbe is paying attention, nevertheless, we do what we must do. And the Rebbe finished telling the story, as it was at that time after the previous Rebbe passed away, that there's still the presence of the Rebbe, yet his evacuating, his departure on some level gives us an opportunity to be able to, so to speak, bring ourselves forward. This story is consistent with an idea found in Hasidus and in Gemara that says that when one is in the presence of a king, they're not allowed to make a muscle, move a muscle. They're not allowed to make any kind of motion. You stand in the presence of the king, you can't even point with your finger. The time that is considered, quote, standing in front of the king is when we pray, when we daven, the Shemona Esrei. So here comes the question. Isn't God always around? Isn't God always present? Aren't we always in the presence of God? And as a consequence, that would inhibit us terribly. We wouldn't be able to move, just as we cannot move when we daven. And of course the answer is that this is the upside to why God hides. The world as we experience it seems to be without an obvious presence of God. This concealment, which is a great challenge to us, also creates the framework in which we are able to do what we need to do to ultimately reincorporate, to bring God back into this world that He created and make this world into His. And that's the heart, that's the soul, that's the spirit of this particular maimer, to explain the need or the justification for the, so to speak, evacuation, the emptying of this reality from a revealed presence of God, not only to challenge us and to hide from us, but to create opportunity which will allow us to be able to do what we need to do. To be sure, in the Tanya, section 2, chapter 6, Perik Vav of Sharichas V'Emunah, the Alter Rebbe says something incredible. He says, Olam Chesed Yibona, which means literally the world was created through kindness. But the Alter Rebbe interprets it a little bit differently. He says, Olam is from the word Helam. The concealment of God, which is the creation of the world, is a great act of kindness. If God would not hide, we would have no opportunity. And God's concealment is not about concealment, it's about creating an environment in which we're able to do what we need to do. And what must we do? Bring God back into His world. And this model, this insight, explains and justifies the fact that Avraham was initially called Avram, then later called Abraham. Alternatively, for 99 years of his life, he was uncircumcised, and at a particular point, he needed to be circumcised.